Okay, so August 20th, 2021, just chugging along, right? I'm vacuum sealing my breadcrumbs now, people. Okay, hold on. Okay, so as you can see, right, vacuum sealed. I put the rim on because I'm stacking these dry jars on top of each other. And then I'll check to see if the vacuum seal holds, right? So the rim is just to give it a little more support, right? Because I'm putting them underneath something, you'll see. This is potatoes that I dehydrated. I'm shy, you can see, one jar short, right? So at some point, when I come across some more bread, I'll make another one, right? Hold on. Okay, so we're going to start moving fast. So, I don't know if people notice, but we have somewhat kind of like a jar shortage in terms of you can't find too many of these sizes. That's why when the fish idea came up, I'm like, oh my god, I'm using this for Amaris, right? Because you can't find half pints like this. Normally I use this size for Amari, right? Or this, right? So anyway, that's what I'm just saying, right? Like you can get the 1 quart, no problem. You can get the pint size usually, but when it comes to these ones and these ones, they're kind of scarce. You can still find these ones, right? What's in here is I bought fresh rosemary and I let it dry, and I have some here which I'm going to change this jar because I need this jar because this jar is like in short supply. But this one I'm going to vacuum seal and put it in long-term food storage, right? Because oh, it's so fresh. So I just wanted to point that out, right? Just as a reminder, right? When it's like a home canned good, blueberry apple, so good, right? Put your white paper on the bottom, so if for some reason the jar pops and leaks out, you're going to get an indication, right? Okay? And don't put your rims on for these kind of things. And try not to stack and pack them, okay? Because, you know, pressure, right? Hold on. So if you're still watching April, this is the doll I was talking about. Her hair needs to be combed out. It's actually red. She's a little redhead doll. Look at that. So cute. Right? Nice little pretty dress. It's on a stand. It has an actual stand. Okay, so any prepper would be happy with these jars, people. Oh, serious. So happy. And then we've got some tomatoes that have been ripening on the vine here and there. So those are getting canned up. I still have my 2 jars, right? Okay? They're not in the greenhouse. I don't know what the heck is going on in there, but even on the outside, some of these plants, I don't know, the weather is just completely messed up. But that will get me, what, 2 jars, 3 jars maybe, right? Well, hold on, we'll see. Okay, moving along the next day. So I had to put a couple of green tomatoes in these because I wasn't quite, can you see? I wasn't quite full on the jars. So now we've got 5 jars, people. Do you see? And I'm telling you, the growing season is terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So if you do it this way, after a terrible growing season, you're going to be thankful that you did it this way. Okay? Okay, so I think it's going to be a long day. It's like 8 minutes, 5 minutes to 8 in the morning here. Okay? I'm looking at this. I paid a lot of money for this. Okay? It has the yolk, everything. So anyway, I'm putting some in jars today. But as I'm looking at this, I'm not satisfied. I kind of want one more, but I'm not going to buy it yet. But in terms of food storage, right? You know, just... Anyway, I don't know how many jars I'm going to get out of this. I'm not going to get 12 jars, that's for sure. So that's what provokes me to want to buy another bag. So I'm going to start with this, and right? So hold on. Okay, so change of plans here. Before I open up that egg powder, I'm going to start with these organic yellow peas. You can see that. Split peas, okay? It's 25 pounds. I'm putting them into quart-sized jars, and I'm vacuum sealing. I'm not storing it in the bag. I'm storing it in vacuum sealed mason jars. Okay, that's just what I want to do, people. Hold on. Okay, so I did this bag. There's just a little bit left, right? So I'm going to test it out because it's organic split yellow peas. You can see that. The first thing that I'm noticing is they're not a brighter yellow, as if you were just to buy yellow split peas in a grocery store. So that tells me that these don't have no dye on them. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay, so as I'm doing this, you don't have to sterilize your jars for something like this, because first of all, when you get them, they're not even in a sterilized environment, okay? It's dry food, right? What's important is that you don't have no moisture in your jar. Like, you do have to have them clean, right? So they have to be air dried after you wash them. You know, don't use jars straight out of a box. Wash them. Wash your lids, right? Double check to make sure it's dry before you put, right, on your container or screw lids or whatever, right? I'll show you later, a long time ago, how I did blackberries, and I put them in a whiskey bottle or a big vodka bottle or some kind of bottle, something like that. And maybe one blackberry wasn't quite fully dried, or maybe the bottle itself had a little bit of water in it. I don't know. All I know is I'll show you how there's a spot there that could be compromised with mold growth. And in a situation like that, it's recommended that you don't eat any of whatever is in that particular container, because mold spreads out even though you don't see it, and it can infect food, right? And in times of famine, or when people, the society is going into famine, oftentimes, people will sell rice, for example, that has been infected with mold, and it can cause serious damage. Now, I don't have a lot of counter space, so after I've done this, make sure you bring it, try and get everything to settle as much as possible. So I have to move everything over to this side, bring out the vacuum sealer, unscrew the lids, and then vacuum seal, then put them in a box, then ask my son to carry them down, because this is 25 pounds basically of peas that I won't be able to carry down. I mean, I can, right? It's difficult for me compared to my son. It's easier for him, right? Me, I have to struggle with it, and it's a box, right? So just make sure your jars are clean. I'm putting them in jars because jars don't leach any kind of toxins. Paper, yeah, okay. If I was using regularly on a weekly basis, then yeah, it could sit like that, but we know I won't be getting to this stuff anytime soon. So we want to put it in a state of, I guess you could say, dormancy. Right? That's where the vacuum sealing comes in. And because the glass itself is non-toxic, the only thing that you would ever have to worry about is oxidization on the top of the lid. But for something like this, you shouldn't get that. And if you did, then that means that somewhere in there, I would think, is probably more like molded before it was oxidized. Alright? Common sense. So hold on a minute. Okay, so as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, right? If you notice, I'm showing you foods with high protein, right? I'm trying to bring in a higher calorie count with some things, especially for Amari, right? You know, affordable, I guess you could say, but I guess it depends on, you know, I've probably spent people over $4,000 on just food in the last month and a half. Okay, that's it. Some people would say that's not affordable. Well, I'm spending my money wisely in terms of long-term affordability in the event of hyperinflation and that kind of stuff, right? See, it's vacuum sealed. It's not going nowhere. Okay. And so if you're going to spend that kind of money, you want to make sure that you're storing it as best as you can. As best as you can. Putting it in jars in this situation works good for me. It can get monotonous doing this though. Once you're through it, you're through it. I'm so glad my son bought those 4 cases of jars for me. Little did he know, right? Or maybe he knew. One or the other. So what's happening here is I'm replacing empty jars with full jars, right? Only these are mainly dry goods, right? And I'm putting them underneath the bathroom sink because that's where I have all my canning jars. I took it over all of it with just canning jars, right? But, you know, the only thing I'm really canning is the apples, so, right? Oh, and some fish. So I think what's happening here with the fish is I'm going to end up buying it frozen because the fellow who sells me the fish said that as it's in transport, you know, before it gets to the supermarket fresh, it's on ice, right? So it's deteriorating over a period of time. No matter how much you think it's fresh, it's not as fresh as if it was out in the sea, cut and then flash frozen, right? So I'm going with the frozen fish, but I'm not doing it until I clear out some of this stuff first. I managed to buy a couple of more jars, like small jars, salmon fish size jars. So I'm happy with that, but it's one of those things that there's not that much around. So I'm glad I had what I had too. Well, hold on a minute. Okay, so all these companies that I've been dealing with, there's like 2 or 3. There's three. I think there's three of them that I deal with. 4 now with the milk, because I ordered a whole bunch of milk powder as well, whole milk and skim milk, and we'll talk about that when that time comes. But in the meantime, just if you notice the name and it stands out for you, right? The fast with delivery, the product is good, right? Packaging is, you know, pretty solid in terms of, you know, it's up to you how you want to store it long term, if you're going to store it long term. Myself, again, we're putting it in jars and vacuum sealing. I'm not using the oxygen absorbers, people, because I don't know. For what it's worth, again, you don't need to sterilize your jar. You just need to make sure that you put it into a clean jar with clean lids and that type of thing. Okay? And there's already air in it. So hold on. Okay, so I've discovered, my nose is starting to run. I'm in the middle of this process here. right? Because the dust is getting in my throat, and you can't breathe. Well, I can breathe, but my nose is starting to run. So I've discovered that I'm allergic to this too. Anytime I get into the kitchen, I'm allergic to the kitchen, right? It must be, right? Doesn't matter if I'm standing over a pot of fruit boiling at high speed to make jam, right? Or doing stuff like this. I'm just saying. It's like a realization I'm allergic to, I guess. This is, what is this? What am I doing right now? Organic steel cut oats. Anytime you want to store, you know, like don't store wheat flour, but you can store the wheat, right? And then the wheat you can grind. And chances are that wheat will last in storage for years and years and years, as long as you don't break the husk. Well, the same kind of principle. Right now, the thing about if you were to use oxygen absorbers, which I'm not using, people, I'm not stressing myself out with them right now. You know, you put them in, and I don't think you vacuum seal them. You let the oxygen absorber take out the so-called oxygen, which is one element out of many within air, and that's what draws the lid down and brings it to that so-called dormant state, right? But then I've listened to quite a few, I guess you could say YouTubers, preppers, right, that talk about this stuff, like in terms of oxygen absorber versus a vacuum sealer, and they're, people that have been doing that kind of stuff between the two for long enough to know the difference. And some will say, don't even waste your time with these oxygen absorbers, right? A vacuum sealer will do just as good, if not better. Just tapping it down. So even after you vacuum seal it and it goes into storage for a long time, you're going to find at some point things are still going to settle in the jar. Don't let that distress you. Okay? But you have to do this initially because you're going to get, that happening. It doesn't matter. But I'm just vacuum sealing them. I feel confident enough to know that will preserve these in a really nice environment. And the only thing that would disturb the jar is if the bag itself is infected with a bug or eggs. And then in that case, they would hatch in a jar. They would have a party. And you'd come along and find out that there was nothing left. They ate it all, for the most part, and made their homes in. If that doesn't happen, then you're good. Or there's a little bit of moisture somewhere in that jar, maybe because, I washed them yesterday. It's been over 24 hours, and, the humidity in the air is high, and things aren't drying as fast as they should. So, it just takes that one little spot for a conductor. It's like, water, just, right, to create mold. And if that mold spreads out, then that jar is no good. So breaking it up this way, has its advantages, right, in terms of long-term food storage. But yeah, I'm like, okay, so you're allergic to this stuff too. But you see, after I do this, people, I won't have to do it again for a long time. That's the point. And when I do it, it will only be to supplement what I'm using more in terms of on a regular basis. Because I think as our economy changes, I think there's going to be a large majority of people finding themselves where they're going to have to learn those homestead skills, modernized, right? City homestead skills, where they're having to rely on buying bulk like this and then being creative with the meals that they make around their staples. One, because it's a little more affordable, and two, it might be the only thing that will be available, right, in terms of having access to. You can still buy chickpeas in a bag, right, if you order them, but go to the grocery store and you won't find no chickpeas in a can. So if you had to choose between no chickpeas or a bag of chickpeas, which one would you choose? That's the theory. So hold on. Okay, so, right, this one came from Ontario. You can see organic large flake rolled oats. That's about 22 pounds. So far what's happening is each bag that I've opened up is giving me 24 jars. You can see that. Okay, and then because these ones are lighter, I will put them on top of this, right? Because I'm stacking packing, that's why I'm putting on the rims, right? And even if this was to pop, it's not a big deal because, again, you're dealing with a you know, a dry good, right? So hold on. Okay, so these are large flake oats. You can store those long term, okay? Right? You can either use oxygen absorber. Again, I'm avoiding them at this point. I'm just going to use the vacuum seal. Oxygen isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, you have a cut, put it out into the air. The air itself helps to heal the cut, right? Where the oxygen, I think, becomes a problem is if there was water in here and mold. Mold would breed oxygen as well as pests, right? Like bugs and stuff. Eh? But outside of that, now because this was flaky, like you can see the fine powder. Where is my finger? There it is, right? I think I'm just going to take a damp paper towel and just wipe them off and let them air dry before I do that, right? And the vacuum sealing. So hold on a minute. Okay, so I got 3 cases to go down, right? Make sure you label, okay? If it's organic, I would highly recommend organic, because if you were to look at this compared to store-bought yellow peas, split peas, these are lighter, and you know, for somebody that wouldn't know that those are organic, maybe wouldn't understand that they're lighter because they maybe don't have as much dye on them in terms of yellow dye, right? And they're processed differently. So as you can see, right, so my son will take those down for me. And then what's happened here is I still have, I put, okay, right, into this jar. I still have enough to put in another jar. So you can see how much I got. 24 quarts plus 2 of these in a 10 key of large flaked rolled, oops, sorry, wandering eye, large flaked rolled oats, right? These are the best to store. Better yet, you can do your cut oats, steel cut oats, or in the actual grain itself, which I already have. But don't do it as an instant oat. Don't save, okay? And of course, the less processing, the more nutrients. Now remember I said I had other ones as well, right? These are rolled oats. They should be large rolled oats. Either or, I'm okay with this package, just like I am with the Quaker oats. Something like that, I might look for some buckets and put these in buckets, right? And maybe I'll use the oxygen absorbers then. Hold on. So I'm looking here, all right, And this is a larger oat because it takes 9 to 14 minutes to cook for one serving. Here they tell you how to make maple honey granola. You take this, you bake it in the oven with whatever, and then, so I might try that, right? So hold on. Okay, so I'm going to end this video. I'll tell you in a second. I'm going on to apples. So that took me 3 hours. I started at 8 o'clock, right? In terms of jarring that stuff up there, okay? And now, right, this is what Andre and I got in the last 2 days. So I'm going to make applesauce with a little bit of plum. Not much, because the plums aren't quite ripe yet. But I've got a few, right? So mostly apple, and then there will be apple with just a tad bit of plum. My goal is just to get it canned, right? If I had more time, more room, more of that, more of everything, I might, I would maybe try and dehydrate some, but just to save the space. But Amari eats this stuff like regularly, so it works really, really good for me. And I have to get up on it because these apples are nice and firm. Some of them I can put in the fridge. I'll wash them and I can put them in the fridge and I can wait for the grapes, right? And I'll do apple grape. I've done that before. So, because I know there's going to be more, right? In terms of, I just opened up bags with apples in them. You see, now my nose is running again. There's going to be more later on when we go get more. The point is that I keep going. And I still have to do those walnuts. I have to finish those walnuts, right? But I'm trying to, like, move this stuff out. So basically, I still got 6 more cases of jars to do in a bit, right? In terms of, I've got whole milk coming, skim milk coming in big bags. I've got the quinoa still that I'm going to do, right? Because I've had 2, I've done 1, I'm going to do another one. And then I've got the chickpeas, the organic chickpeas, and the organic green split peas, right? And then yesterday, I ordered a 50-pound bag of soya beans, people. Simply because you can make your own tofu. It's really not that hard, right? Not that I know how, but I bought a little tofu thing, right? And I've got a soya maker, like a soya milk maker. I've never used it, but I have the machine. So, in terms of that worst case scenario, soybean is a good protein to have as a backup, right? So, you've got the chickpea milk, you've got the powder milk, and you've also got the soya milk. So that's 3 different types of milk. I'm not even going to touch nuts right now because, 1, they're too expensive, and, I'm going for the longer food term storage in terms of good, the food lasts, right? Where nuts, it's a hit and miss, right? In terms of storing them. The oats, the way I did it, will last a long, long time. And if you really wanted to, you could use an oxygen absorber in each jar. But honestly, I don't think it's necessary, myself personally, right? In light of how they kind of package this stuff. And I've got oats from way back in the day still sitting in the bag, still in there, I'm pretty sure, right? Just the end of the bag kind of thing from Save On Foods. So, all right, so I'm going to end this video on these apples. My son's not home, so he can't take those jars down. So I just have to work around now and get into other jars, right? And so this is what I'm going on to next. Oh yeah. Next video, I'm going to talk about this stuff. Do you see? Do you see? I bought this for Amari more so than anything else because of the calories. Remember when I mentioned I'm trying to bring in foods that have higher calories, right? But are nutritional. So hold on.